Latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC. And today we're taking a look at violence against women and asking the question, is enough being done? We know that it's a problem. We know that it's a huge problem. And we're hearing some horrific stories, and we need to find the solutions. And we've got a panel that's joined us to discuss this, but we've also got people here in the venue that have been sharing their thoughts with us, and we're going to start with them. But you at home as well can share your thoughts with us via Twitter. But let's go straight to our tables and just get a sense of what people are saying here at the venue. As we start with Queen Baliso on table number 17. Queen, table number 17.
Good morning. My name is Queen Baliso. I'm from Love Life. My first comment on the paper, I wrote about the 4-month baby. As I was driving, the first thing that I heard, first thing before I spoke to anyone in the news, was the 4-month-old baby raped. So what I'm asking is that, are we doing enough? Is the sentence enough? Because it's getting worse, and apparently South Africa, we are the worst. Secondly, I want to say to women, the ones who have made it, the ones who have money, let's equip our communities. Let's equip our communities, let's equip women, let's equip young girls. Young girls are being abused by sugar daddies. They're taking advantage of their situation at home. They're destroying our young girls. And our young boys, they don't have role models. Their fathers are not role models. Their fathers are dating young girls. So we as women, let's equip them. And I'm saying to you guys, work very hard for things that you will own and be proud of yourself. Because women they can't even negotiate on sex. Because they're not working, they're depending on men. If they can work, if they can have, that's theirs. They'll be able to negotiate, even on sex. Some of them are married and they're HIV in marriages, because they can't even negotiate on anything. So I'm saying to you, my message to you is that create a safe environment for your kids and for yourself, and make informed choices. Your lives mustn't be determined by relationships.
Okay. Mbulela, this idea of behavior keeps coming up. When I heard Matsadi's story, I couldn't believe that this guy was so brazen that he felt that he could drive around and show off in front of people. And I'm just wondering, where is it that people think that they can do this and that people can watch? Where does this attitude come from?
Last time, we issued a statement with SANAC, I think 2 weeks ago, where we were saying, as much as we are visiting different communities and some men are showing a remorse and they do want to change, but there are men out there who declare war against women and the girl child. They understand human rights, but they don't care. And that's when I think we need to include or involve law enforcement agencies in this campaign. Because you can't bring those men in a room and workshop them. They do understand these issues. They don't care, that's all. So you can't keep on bringing them in a conference and debate. You must send those people to jail. So as much as we promote the activism, but at the same time, people must respect law. They must respect human rights.
Okay, and Nhlanhla, where did this care disappear? And Lisa, maybe you can comment as well on this. Where did we get to a point where, Mbulela can say they just don't care?
I think it stems from our justice system. It's not harsh enough. It seems to be condoning this behavior. We understand that violence against women is a social problem, but it's also a criminal matter. And the criminal justice system has to come to the party. Criminals have to be arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced properly. But a lot of perpetrators know that I can do it and I will get away with it. And because of the number of perpetrators who are getting away with it, a lot of perpetrators are being bred in our community because they know that beating up a woman does not have consequences. I'm sitting here with Lisa, we are asking ourselves, did Mansadi's husband, was he arrested? Is he in jail now? Is he still serving his sentence? What is happening to him? A whole lot of women out there will say, there was a woman at our shelter who was stabbed 19 times and she survived. The sentence was 15 years. The husband served 5 years because good behavior in jail means that he can come back and start a new life and then go on to abuse other women. So what is the message that we are sending out there? Yes, we need to change behavior, we need to deal with the social component, but also justice has to be served. The criminals have to be prosecuted and to the full might of the law. And maximum sentencing should be exercised so that we are sending a strong message as a country that we are not condoning violence. And also to the good men out there who never speak out whenever these things are happening. I'm wondering, during that time, as this man was showing off, how many men stood there and said, we need to do something. This cannot be done in our name. So a lot of them will stand and look and walk away. Why are we doing that as South Africans? And we also find women also who look and then start criticizing. We might be asking questions. Mansadi knows that her husband is abusive. Why did she give him a lift? That's the question that we start asking, but we don't support. We need to understand there are dynamics there. There are issues of fear. And fear is something that sometimes stops you from thinking, from acting, because you freeze. Just like when a woman is raped and we're asking her, did you scream? She might not scream because she's in shock.
Lisa, quick comment?
I mean, I think there are a couple of things going back to Mansadi's story as well, is we need to ask how well are our police and our courts doing in implementing the law? Because it's very disturbing to hear that Mansadi went to the police a number of times and there wasn't much of a response. And I think we need to be asking, why was that? What were the consequences? Because I think if you listen to Mansadi's story, there are a lot of points of intervention there, and one wonders what happened. I mean, one would want to ask more broadly, for example, what support do we give to families? Because very often that's the first place women go for help. And also families are observing what their sons and their brothers are doing. What is the family doing to help and to intervene? And sometimes, of course, families are themselves being threatened by the abuser. So I think is hard, you must struggle on. So I think we've got to also be asking questions of families and how we support them. Then I think, as Nhlanhla was saying, there's a question of bystanders. Men have friends. What are their friends telling them? Are they also saying some things like, if that was my wife, I'd never let her talk to me like that. I'd show her quickly how to behave. So I think we want to focus often on the perpetrator and the victim, but we're not looking at their families and their friends and the role they play in either supporting women to leave and take action or continuing to support men in their abusive attitudes. So I think her story is about, we need to look at our justice system, we need to look at families, we need to look at friends, and we need to look at communities if we're going to try and stop this violence and be effective.
All right. Did you want to add, Minister?
Yeah, I think I accept that it is, the justice system is very central and it's very important. And that's why, for instance, as a Women's League, when we went to the ANC conference, one of the things we raised was the interpretation even of the very legal system and its application. But also what is quite difficult about gender-based violence, it's multifaceted. It has to do with, I accept, with a very strong justice system that has to protect women. But the case of a 4-month-old, there's no economic dependence, there's no relationship. It's just this brazenness amongst men around that they can do things willingly. Men get life sentences just for a rape, which they do as a gang, and they've seen other men getting life sentences, they go for it. And what is it about the way we socialize men around patriarchy that perpetuates this violence? Because Mansadi was not economically dependent. She didn't, she had a place to go, she had a family to go to, she probably had support from the home, but it happened. And for me, it's, what is it? I think that's what Lisa, for me, said initially. This patriarchy and the socialization of men, that it doesn't matter what, they'd rather go to jail or die, but they have the right to harm and abuse women. And for me, that's the bottom line, because it comes in different facets. It comes from a stranger, and then Boyson got raped. He didn't need anything from this man. He had gone out as a young woman to enjoy herself, then she becomes a victim of violence. So it's not about economic dependence, it's not about home, it's not about anything else, it's just about men's attitude and the way we socialize them and the structure of patriarchy and just this entitlement that men have. For me, it's the bottom line, because we can arrest them so many. I mean, they're being arrested. There's so many men serving life for rape. Last time, the case around the Mudimule, those 3 men who just go and participate in a crime which has nothing to do with them, just to humiliate the woman to the limit by just raping her again. That was just really around humiliating a woman. It had nothing to do with anything, right? It's not about relationships, it's not about shelter, it's not about anything else, but it's about men's attitude and the way we've socialized our men in this country and the structure of patriarchy, which gives men just the sense that they have the right to harm and to harm to an extent of killing women. It doesn't matter to them. And that's for me the key issue.
All right. We've talked about the justice system. Perhaps, I don't know, Pumeza Mafani, National Coordinator, Sexual Offences, National Prosecuting Authority. I don't know if we can get a microphone to you. Are you letting us down?
I wouldn't say so, Peter. We, as a National Prosecuting Authority, and fortunately, most of my colleagues up there on the stage, I work with them, because we realize that we are right at the end of the criminal justice system. So we often get cases that are half-baked and half-cooked. And so we took an initiative to say, what is it that we can do and breathe to life what we always say, that we are lawyers for the people, and that we bring to life as well what we call community prosecutions as well. So we partnered with various stakeholders, including POA, including CSVR, Toranang, and everybody else, to say, what can we come up with that is holistic and work together, because we realize that if we're not involved from the beginning, then we won't have a prosecutable case. As you know, in this country, prosecutors have the prerogative to prosecute or not to prosecute. So for us to make that decision towards the positive in terms of prosecutions, we needed to make sure that we are also involved right at the beginning. Hence, the birth of the Tutuzela care centers for the rape victims, and trying to turn victims into survivors, and trying to get involved from the investigation stage right to the end of the game. But over and above that, we also get involved in terms of advocacy and public education and legal education. But as the panelists say, we can never say we've done enough until, for instance, I don't have a job. The fact that I have the job to make sure that I roll out these centers, it shouldn't be. We shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be happening at all. So it means we need a constant working together and holistic approach to the issue. So it can never be just criminal justice system or just the community aspect, but we need to look at this seamless kind of collaboration from the community level up to the end of the criminal justice system. So as a result, we always encourage working together, and that we are always available actually to plan. Hence, I think I'm hoping that the Gender Council, that the new ministry of women and children and people with disabilities also help in terms of bringing those kind of partnership and making sure that we work together as all these stakeholders and role players in the system from the community level up until the end of the criminal justice system to work together. So, and yes, and also we got involved as far as making sure that we look at what we call training for the first responders in terms of the police themselves. As prosecution, we partnered with the Department of Police to say, what are our police, are they skilled enough to deal with the cases when they receive them, and also sensitize them on the social context on which these cases happen from. Because often at times, it's the very same people belonging to communities adhering to the same cultural beliefs of patriarchy, and they're expected to handle these cases. So we're trying to change those mindsets, even with our own service providers, to make sure that they appreciate the social context. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's talk to one of those service providers. I'm seeing a table here. I want a microphone to go to this table. Police wearing lots of pips, which means you're quite senior. How is it possible that Mansadi could go to a police station several times and nothing was done? Is there a shortcoming at the police level that needs to be sorted out? Are you letting our women down?
Thanks. Good morning,
If you could just say who you are, sorry.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Ramauma from SABC Partnership. It is an omission. They have omitted to do their work. We have a regulatory framework in the CSC, Community Service Centers, whereby every case is taken seriously. So what I can say, they have omitted to do their job. Thanks.
All right, so you say that, but it's not happening. So I'm just trying to get to why is it not happening? I've read stories about you don't have enough rape kits. We hear stories of police not being interested because it's a domestic affair, it's a domestic issue, patriarchy. Is there an attitude problem that this is not happening? We know that the procedures are there, but they're not being carried out. Why not? That's the question.
Yeah, in case like this, Peter, we have levels of command in the SCS, whereby if somebody is omitting or the complainant is not satisfied, there is a relief commander who have to look into that matter and then take a responsibility.
Do you know that 1 in 25 people are reporting rape? Only 1 in 25. There must be something you're doing wrong, sir.
It's true. We have what you call, we are working with the community, our community. As you see us here, we are working with provincial youth crime prevention. We have also CPFs, whereby they always frequent the police stations, whereby they do oversight of our work. So if in case like this, if it happens, it mustn't be left like that. It must be reported to, it's either CPFs or it's either the station commander.
Okay. Can I ask you to give the microphone to the female police officer there? I want to labor this point a little bit. If you could just stand up and just say who you are. And I'm just wondering, you're a female police officer. Are you getting enough support to help your women, or are the men's attitudes within the police service still problematic from your viewpoint? Please be honest with us today.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Constable Dombintlabati. I'm from Kempton Park. Yes, I am getting support from our commanders whenever we have such cases. Each and every station has a victim support center. So if there's a case of domestic violence or rape, we refer them to the victim support center. That's where we receive them. And we work with social development. We are partnering with social development. So if there's a case if there's such a case, whoever is at the charge office must refer that person to the victim support center. That's where we receive them.
What's happening to the police officers that are not doing their job? Are you guys firing them, or what's happening to them?
Normally what we advise the community to do, because each and every police member has a name tag. So you need to make sure that you check the name tag of whoever is assisting you, so that you'll be able so that whoever is handling that case will know who was assisting you.
Are they getting fired though? Because they need to be thrown out. I mean, this is... Perhaps it's above your pay grade, that answer.
It's about
We'll leave it for the time being. Let's go back to our tables. Table number 2, Nkensani Kubai. Table number 2. Thank you very much, though, for your answers. Nkensani?
Good morning to you, Peter, and the guests and viewers at home. I think for my side is to raise the issue of a boy child. Because if you hear, and what the president of the Women's League has said, is that not every victim is literally a person who's disempowered. You find many who are empowered. But are we doing enough to look at a boy child, raising them with correct values, morals, so that they become responsible young men and men in the future? Or is it maybe looking at balancing whether we have focused more as a country on girl child? Can we blame that? So I wanted to check from the research, the team that is doing research, there's a panelist who's working under research, if they've found any correlation around that. While we do not neglect, because if you look at a girl child has been neglected for some time, and therefore much had to be done to improve the lives of young women. But looking at this area of work and the challenge that we have in gender violence, that you need more young boys who are growing up with particular focus, so that we don't deal with it when they are old, but at an early age, create that system or programs that can support them and teach them what is it to become, or how to become responsible people in society.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Lisa, you're the researcher. Bulela, I want you to, because we go to initiation schools, we're taught how to behave. This is not a cultural thing. I don't know any African culture that teaches rape. So I don't know where this patriarchy comes from. And then, I don't know, because this attitude seems to be, is it a new phenomena? I don't know, where has this come from? Lisa?
I mean, I think one of the truly cross-cultural phenomena in South Africa is patriarchy. It's shared. It doesn't have any particular uniquely cultural roots. I think it's a set of attitudes that are not only exhibited in South Africa, but are around the world. Obviously, in different cultures, it'll take slightly different forms, and there'll be different manifestations of it, but it would appear this notion that men are better than women, that women are inferior, that they should earn less, that their ideas are not as important, and that they're chiefly here on earth to provide sex, appears to be, unfortunately, a universally set of shared ideas. So I think when people want to talk about cultural breakdown, it's not specifically your particular culture, it's much deeper, it seems to be going much deeper than that. But in terms of the research, I do think whether or not we're giving girls more opportunities than boys, I'm not sure if that's really the case. Sometimes we think so because of things like the SABC's initiative a couple of years ago to bring a girl child to work. I think people thought that was unfairly advantaging girls. But I think if you look more broadly than that, there isn't much to suggest that girls are being advantaged over boys. I mean, we're starting to see some important shifts in that girls are starting to achieve as well as boys at school, and they're finishing, except where we have cases of pregnancy. I think girls are continuing to be disadvantaged because they're the ones who are expected to leave school, not the father. And we don't have always, I think, we've seen the problems now in the Constitutional Court where girls are being banned from coming back to school after they've had babies. And that, of course, has serious consequences for their lives' future. So I think there's much more we can be thinking about that. But again, I think to go back to boys, one of the things we really should be looking at, I think, is the abuse of boys. Because quite often there is a risk that if you have been abused, you may be at risk of growing up perhaps to continue that behavior. And I don't by any means want to suggest that everybody who's been abused is at risk of becoming an abuser. I really don't. I think there's a lot of resilience and a lot of strength that we see in former victims. But we must pay attention to boys and give them support where they're being in situations where they have been abused. It really is very important, and I don't think we have enough programs that assist children. If we look at, I think, some of the crisis that's facing our NGOs, how they're closing down their feeding schemes, how they're closing down their services, we are creating a problem in future. If we do not help children now, we can look forward to serious problems in 5 to 10 years' time. So I really would encourage the Department of Social Development to be looking very carefully at the programs they're no longer continuing to support, because the problems that's going to encourage. I think we need to look at non-payment of maintenance, because I think fathers who are not supporting their children, who are not playing a role in their children's lives, are creating, as Umbulelo said, a group of boys who feel angry and resentful. We also see from research that with the first rapes start to happen when boys are 17 years old. That's the age at which we start to see rape happening. So it's telling us something very important, that at school, that's the age group we need to be focusing on and trying to intervene in. And I do think it's really important that we start looking at what are the social conditions in which boys and men live, because an attitude doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from where you're growing up and what you're getting from your friends. So I think we need to be looking at what do we do to intervene when boys are still young and try and change those conditions. And I think we can see that where there's problems in parenting, where there isn't a father around, where there's a community that is struggling, that is where we need to concentrate and focus our attention. So again, I would really want to urge the Department of Social Development to be playing more of a role to ensuring that things like orphans and vulnerable children are properly supported, that feeding schemes are properly supported, that after-school programs are properly supported. All of that does help to prevent. Even if it doesn't look like it immediately, in the long term, that is what prevents violence.
All right. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and then Bulelo, I'll come to you.